rod cast easily. Quite simply, the bigger that D-loop is, the more line weight there is behind the rod, the more the rod loads, and the easier the cast will go out. The second principle, equally important, and that is what we call line stick. And line stick, imagine that's the water surface. And again, we've got the rod here, got a D-loop. Line stick refers to the amount of line that is lying on the water right here as you start the forward cast. And that's the critical point we're talking about, as you start the forward cast. Because the line is like a tacky glue. And the more line that's in the surface of the water when you start the forward cast, the more energy is lost trying to rip the line out of the surface film. And so your cast kind of fails and dies. A good spey cast is going to have a lot less line, just the tip of the line lying on the water. And with that small amount of line stick on the water, you've got little amount of drag. When you start the forward cast, it comes cleanly out of the water and no problems are incurred. Let's look at these principles in a little more detail, down on the water, and actually with a rod and line. The first principle we talked about was the D-loop, the load of the rod, the thing that makes the rod flex, that little curve there. That is the D-loop. Very important that you've got a D-loop that loads the rod. And remember, the smaller that D-loop is, the less the rod will flex against it, so the more you have to whack it. You know, Billy Basher, if you have a small D-loop. If you've got the room, you throw back a bigger D-loop, then the line has more weight. There's more weight right behind you here, loading the rod, more curve loading the rod. The rod flexes naturally easier and cleaner, and you don't need so much power on the forward stroke. All because you threw back the bigger D-loop. Now the D-loop is controlled by what I call a kind of analogy of the frisbee toss. If I was going to stand here and toss a frisbee back this way, maybe 5 feet, just a little floater, slow stroke like that will give me a short frisbee toss and give me a small D-loop. If I wanted to toss the frisbee 25 feet behind me, I'll give it a little bit more effort. And creating the D-loop's the same thing. The slower you come back, the smaller the D-loop will be. And the faster you come back, the bigger the D-loop will be. So it's the speed that you come back that creates the D-loop size. Now, most of the time you want this big D-loop because that is your load. It makes this efficient, effortless cast. Sometimes you're restricted. You've got a wall of trees behind you or a bank of bushes, and you can't throw back a huge D-loop into that. You'll tangle and you can just get frustrated and tear your hair out. And so sometimes you want to create a small D-loop. That's how you do it. Just go back slower. Throw your frisbee a little flip down there. So always practice creating big D-loops and creating little D-loops so that you can do that when you've got the situation that warrants which one. The second principle is the line stick, the anchor or the grip, as you like. That is the line that is lying on the water when you start the forward stroke. In this case, where I have the small D-loop, I've got a lot of line stick on the water. That's a bad combination. Small D-loop means the rod doesn't load. Lots of line stick is also a bad thing because it means when you start the forward stroke, you've got to rip it out of the water. Half the energy you put in the cast is just trying to break the surface film. So a bad combination in terms of efficiency of a cast is a small D-loop and a lot of line stick. That's what requires the whack. When you throw back this large D-loop, if you time your cast just right, when you start the forward cast, there's no more than the leader and maybe the nail not touching the water when you start. What an efficient combination that is. Big D-loop loads the rod, small amount of line stick to overcome, very efficient forward cast as a result.